Our next story is out of Germany. Former Chancellor Angela Merkel is back in the spotlight. Yesterday, she was given her country's top civilian honor. It's the Order of Merit of the Federal Republic of Germany. She received the Grand Cross First Class Special Issue, and Merkel became only the third chancellor to get this award. But it wasn't without controversy. Her contributions to her country are now being debated, especially regarding Germany's ties with Russia. Some are even questioning whether she really deserved Germany's top honor and whether politicians should be awarded for doing their jobs. Here's more.
Angela Merkel, Germany's Iron Lady, the first woman to have helmed Europe's largest economy, the one who steered both Germany and Europe through turbulent times. That's one take on her legacy, and it's this persona that's being rewarded. Yesterday, Merkel was given Germany's top civilian honor. She received the Grand Cross First Class Special Issue of the Order of Merit of the Federal Republic of Germany. She was honored by Germany's president, Frank-Walter Steinmeier. He was full of praise for Germany's former leader.
16 Jahre lang.
For 16 years, you served Germany with ambition, with wisdom, with passion. For 16 long years, you worked for freedom and democracy, for a country and the well-being of its people, tirelessly and sometimes to the limits of your physical strength.
Und für das Wohlergehen seiner Menschen gearbeitet.
The award has been given to a German chancellor only 2 times in the past, so it was a special occasion. Guests included current Chancellor Olaf Scholz and European Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen. Merkel thanked her family and several aides when she accepted the honor.
People often talk about what snake pit politics is. I can say that I would not have survived if it were not for the other side of politics. That's why I have always been able to enjoy it. Thank you, Mr. President.
The crowd applauded Merkel's contributions, but of course, not everyone was happy about her getting awarded. Many have been criticizing Merkel of late, especially her role in making Germany dependent on Russian gas. Merkel had pushed for Germany to substitute nuclear energy for Russian natural gas. In light of the Ukraine war, she's been facing flack for not having a plan B in place. During his speech, the German president spoke about the changed political landscape of today.
Putin's Russia has reduced the European security order to rubble. The peace on our continent, for which you, like many of their predecessors in the Chancellery, have worked for years and decades, February 24, 2022, has not only changed Europe, it has changed the world, and with it our view of the years of German and European politics before. It is important that we learn our lessons from this. Today we must think differently, act differently.
Was the German president trying to protect Merkel's legacy by saying those things? He is, after all, an ally. Steinmeier served as both Vice-Chancellor of Germany and Minister of Foreign Affairs under Merkel. To criticize her would mean accepting his own role in the failure of Germany-Russia ties. This isn't Merkel's only policy that has come under scrutiny. Her stance on refugees is being criticized too. Her 2015 decision to welcome hundreds of thousands of refugees from Syria and Iraq is being slammed. Critics say it was humane, but it led to instability in Germany. But as they say, hindsight is 20/20. It'll take years to truly assess the impact Merkel had on Germany. Some of her decisions may seem obviously wrong now, but at the time she was doing what she thought was best. Which brings us to the next point. Why is Merkel being honored now, so soon after her term ended? Critics say it's too early to judge her time at the helm. Again, it'll take years to really see how her policies shape Germany. So to award her now seems like an act of flattery, as is often the case when it comes to honoring politicians. We're not talking about dictators racking up honors presented by their lackey institutions, but about democratic leaders who continuously seem to be showered with praise. Bridges, highways, stadiums everywhere bear their names. They proudly wear domestic orders of merit, mostly for just doing their jobs. National leaders are always going to forever change a country, in a good or bad way, sometimes both. So if their public impact is guaranteed, do they really need the medals?
Before we begin our last story for the day, a quick quiz. What is 2/3 of 70? A football team has won 3 of their last 10 penalty shootouts. What is their success rate? And lastly, how many minutes are there in 1/12 of a day? Even if you do not know the answers, surely you know what the story is about. Mathematics. Some of us truly love it. But for others, it can be a weapon of mass self-esteem issues. Even the simplest of maths problems induce panic, embarrassment, resentment, or self-loathing. Because maths anxiety is real, on average about 20% of the world suffers from it. In the UK, it's officially the worst in the world, 40%. And it's becoming a problem for them. Now, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak wants to subtract the anxiety from maths. He loves his numbers and he wants to take on that anti-maths mindset.
We make jokes about not being able to do maths. It's socially acceptable. We say things like, oh, maths, I can't do that, it's not for me, and everyone laughs. But we'd never make a joke like that about not being able to read. So we've got to change this anti-maths mindset.
Sunak has vowed to boost numeracy among Britons. Numeracy is the ability to work with numbers. At present, maths is compulsory up to the age of 16 in the UK. After that, students in the country in schools can drop out of maths. They can drop maths as a subject. But Prime Minister Sunak wants to change that. He wants to make maths education compulsory till the age of 18.
We're one of the few developed countries where young people don't routinely study some form of maths up to the age of 18. They do it in Australia, Canada, France, Germany, Finland, Japan, Norway, and America. Why should we accept any less for our children?
So how big is the UK's maths problem? Around 8 million adults in the country have skills of primary school children, meaning 8 million adults in the UK can handle numbers only as well as primary school children. And this is hurting their economy. According to estimates, lack of basic math skills is costing the British economy how much? About $25 billion a year. Right now, they can't afford this kind of loss. The UK economy is struggling, prices are skyrocketing, people are struggling to pay bills and to buy food to make ends meet. Workers are going on strikes. So Prime Minister Sunak wants to change things around and he thinks maths can help.
Think about the cost of living, how important it is right now to understand what discounts are available. How do you make sure that your credit cards are being managed properly? What's the right mortgage deal to go for? All these things, so important for day-to-day life. And right now, there's probably too many people who don't have the numeracy they need to make those decisions that will support them and their families.
Some critics say this is hardly the strategy they need. Others say this is not even a coherent strategy. Irrespective, Sunak is moving forward. This is the second time he's spoken about maths this year. Previously, he called it a passion project. He says this matter is quote-unquote personal for him. Now, you know that the British Prime Minister is of Indian origin, and it's being said that his heritage may have something to do with it. Because there's a lot of emphasis on the study of mathematics in India. Indian students are perceived to be better at it than those in Western nations. And India has a legacy of extraordinary mathematicians. It is home to the likes of Aryabhat, Srinivas Ramanujan, and Shakuntala Devi. As Albert Einstein once famously said, we owe a lot to the Indians who taught us how to count. Because India gave the number 0 to the world, so the India variable may be part of the equation. Regardless, Rishi Sunak has pointed towards a bigger problem. Why are we so scared of maths? It takes root early and occurs due to different reasons, like being scolded by frustrated parents and teachers repeatedly, or not being able to grasp a foundational topic, which then makes it harder to catch up. We've all been there. It can be a soul-crushing experience. Sometimes it's also a policy issue. It can be difficult for some to follow the curriculum. Other times, the very relevance of maths is in question. How many times have you actually used the Pythagoras theorem in your life? Or calculated speed using a time and distance formula? We think we rarely use maths, but we may be wrong. Maths is usually at the front and center of most of the things we do. We can use it to fact check. Are politicians lying about unemployment? How many COVID vaccines have really been administered? We can use it to save money. Are discounts really benefiting us? Can taking a different travel route help us save time and money? We do such calculations all the time. So the problem is not that maths cannot help us. It is that we often don't know how to let it. Shakuntala Devi said, children dread mathematics because they see it as a subject, but mathematics is a language. And those who romanticize it say, the scary pure maths, with alphabets and symbols, is like poetry. How you use it depends on you. It can hold you back. It can also set you free. And as George Cantor once said, the essence of mathematics lies in its freedom. I think it also has a lot to do with your teacher. A good teacher can make maths fun. And before I wrap this story, here's an admission. I can give you quotes and analysis because I'm past the stage where I had to take maths tests. And I'd be lying if I said I'm not in a happier place. Dealing with maths can be tough. Here's hoping you are having a better time learning it, and leaders who offer policy solutions also push for ways to teach maths in more imaginative ways. Love has its limits. And when it comes to spy circles, this probably includes honey traps. You know the stratagem used by intelligence services, where spies exploit romance to gather secrets. Now it's evolving with modern times. Reports say Russian spies are using dating apps. They're targeting German politicians and soldiers. They're trying to get intelligence related to the war in Ukraine. And we'll talk about it tonight. But this strategy is not unique to them. And it's not new. Spies across countries and centuries have employed this method. In fact, honey trapping has existed for longer than you may think, probably longer than most Valentine's Day traditions. And history has some of the finest examples. Here's a report.
Love them or hate them, dating apps have become the reality of modern love. Most of us are mining them for romance, but some are doing it to topple governments and gain inside information on wars. People are spying with a swipe, and government officials are stuck in honey traps. We're talking about Russian spies. They're using dating apps like Tinder, swiping left and right, forming connections online, reportedly doing so to gain intelligence, mainly on the war in Ukraine. According to reports, their targets are German politicians and members of Bundeswehr, that's the German armed forces. Russian spies are trying to recruit them as sources of information. Why is this? Because Germany has been one of Ukraine's allies. Thousands of Ukrainian troops have been trained in the country. So for Russian spies, Germany is the obvious arena. And the German Federal Office has reports. Tinder is one of the most used platforms for this. But spies are also using social media to forge connections. And Russian spy levels are rising in the country. Germany now has as many of them as it did during the Cold War. And Russia is no stranger to openly using data from dating apps. It already uses Tinder to collect the data of its own citizens. Dating apps have also forged a connection with the war in Ukraine. Tinder users can pay for a feature, which allows them to talk to people in different countries. Some people are using it to speak to users in Russia, asking them about the war in Ukraine. So honey trapping and war share quite the love story, and it's been going on for decades now. Here are some examples. Mata Hari from World War I. She was a Dutch exotic dancer, convicted of spying on Germans. Later, she was tried and executed. Or look at the Cold War. The Soviet Union had a clandestine academy. It trained young Russian women in the art of honey traps. But don't misunderstand, both men and women are adept at setting a trap. After the Berlin Wall was built in 1961, male East German spies honey-trapped officials from the western parts. Honey trapping is a tool of choice in modern warfare too. Only now it's done on online dating apps. Last year, an Indian man was arrested for helping a Pakistani spy. They were in an online relationship, and he had no idea about her identity. During the same year, Australia issued a statement. Foreign spies were reportedly using Tinder to obtain sensitive intelligence. In 2020, the US said foreign intelligence services may use data from dating apps. And China is not far behind. Its honey trap is so vast, Britain's MI5 has a 14-page document of safety protocol against it. When it comes to honey traps, there are far too many stories, too many dramas, and many ruined lives. No amount of training, integrity, patriotism, and cleverness has acted as a defense against them. The victims refuse to believe the reality, even when presented with evidence. That's exactly why honey traps have a legacy of being successful. Remember, in this battlefield of love, your next match could be a spy. So if it seems too good to be true, it probably is.
The US and Russia are dangerously close to an armed conflict. This year, 2023, New Delhi will be the capital of global diplomacy. For a country as diverse as ours, with 88% of the population illiterate, it was a very big deal to write a constitution, and that too, the world's largest. Meanwhile, if we may, here's a Republic Day gift from India for the BBC. A list of suggestions for the BBC for their upcoming documentaries. Number 1, the Kohinoor and the colonial loot. Number 2, an outdated monarchy and unhealthy obsession with the royals. Number 3, racism in 2023. We're waiting.